Let's start with that. You've been traveling. Tell us about it. What's going on?
Um, New York was really interesting. I mean, one of the first things to say about New York is that I was incredibly nervous about going. Um, it was a bit of a stroll down to the casino in many ways because you hear stories, and let's not pretend that
Yeah.
people
So first
like.
of all, I'm happy you were actually allowed into the country and weren't detained at the border for having posted content that's critical of Trump, because people less critical than you have actually found themselves detained on arrival, deported, put in immigration detention, having their devices scrutinized, confiscated. So yeah, you made it through.
Well, what more than just making it through? And it's important for me to say this, just because it's crazy that we're in this time. So they call me. I go, I get off the airplane. They go line 11, and I'm just like, oh, hold your breath. Let's see. And I saw the most beautiful thing. More than any Christmas present, more than any award, I saw a black woman as the immigration officer,
Oh, God.
and the relief, the sense of safety I suddenly felt. And how sad it is that it's got to this place. That if it was a white man, he could have been a lovely white man, but for me, it would have felt way more of a lottery on how I would have been treated. And of course, the woman was lovely to me, and we discussed my films and all sorts of things, and she let me into New York City. But it's just an important experience because in my life, in my 47 years, I've never flown to any country where I didn't know. And I've got all the documentation, of course, but I just didn't know what would happen to me. And the culture of fear. And, it's not like we're drug dealers here.
One of
It's
the
like,
things that I really has got to me, like I used to be a war correspondent. My job used to be basically to fly into war zones and everyone else was trying to get out. And I have found trying to enter the US under this administration more stressful and scary than flying into a war zone. And the reason for that is, when you're a journalist flying into a war situation, there are rules and norms and practices that apply, and you're prepared for them. And even though it's like by definition an unstable situation, there's kind of a level of predictability about what the risks are. The thing about America right now is it just feels like anything can happen. There are no
anything.
precedents, there are no
You
risks.
can have a
The
green card,
Constitution
you can have
may or may
any,
not be relevant to your situation. Your like fully documented legal visa status may or may not have any carry any weight. It's so volatile, and that's what's really scary about it. And
Yep.
I've said that to Americans, and Americans have been really shocked and offended to hear me say that, but I say it from experience. And I don't know if a lot of people in America realize how much of a deterrent effect that is having on people wanting to engage in
Yep.
America right now. And I say this fully aware of my privilege. I know what people who aren't documented are going through at the border. I'm not in any way trying to compare myself to that level of insecurity and threat of violence, which,
Mhm.
is catastrophic. But, as someone with a legal visa who is used to traveling with that kind of privilege of knowing that you have the law beside you and you are
Yep.
from a nation that is a major ally, it's really like, I think if they are treating people like us like that in plain sight with all of that power and privilege and status, it only goes to show what they're doing when no one is looking, people
Exactly.
who aren't documented, and it's
Yep.
scary. So anyway, that's good news. You got in
I got
and you
it.
got to share your work. And how did it go?
It was really special because it was a New York audience, right? Which is different to any other audience that we've had. And Andy and I were really intrigued to see how they would take the film. And it's also for me the first time being in America watching this. And I can only say, I mean, Stephen Dosinger has just done a beautiful post, the amazing lawyer, because he was in the audience, but people were deeply moved. And I think the George Floyd of it all feels so much closer to home to an American
Mm,
audience that it just had a deeply, it was a unique screening that made me feel that if we do manage to get a wide cinematic release of this film, we really will be, lightning in a bottle for
well,
many
it's
people.
now being distributed by Watermelon Films since we last talked. So
Yeah,
congratulations.
Watermelon have the
Yeah.
rights, and again, amazing. amazing new, there's a new world of cinema that's happening. I'm
And
currently,
actually, Miss Anne, maybe for like people who aren't watching who don't know about Watermelon, just give us like a line on who they are and why that matters.
they are a Palestinian owned film production and distribution company that have become really the go-to choice for some of the most important films that have come out in the funnily enough in the last 2 years. They have, with my film included, I think 5 films going for Oscar and BAFTA glory, including films like Palestine 36, which is an immensely important film that is coming out globally right now as we speak. And Palestine 36 is a really good example because, we've seen so many World War One and Two films, obviously, and Schindler's List is a benchmark of many historical epics. And you ask yourself, why hasn't there been films about the Mau Mau massacre? Why hasn't there been films about the Bengal famine or the genocide of the Congolese under Leopold? And then you see a film like Palestine 36 that for the first time in a huge cinematic Hollywood style scale shows what happened in Palestine before Israel was created. And actually, there's very little to do with Zionism in the film. It's a lot more to do with the original sin of the British and the imperial project. And I just thought this is why we need stories told by a broader range of people. So Watermelon Pictures is distributing stories told by the multiplicity of this planet that hasn't been done in our lifetime.
It's such a fitting home for your film. And the other thing that's changed since we last talked is that we were talking about Mamdani, and now
Yes.
you've been in Mamdani's New York. So I want to know, was the atmosphere different from pre-Mamdani New York? Was
Yeah,
it
I mean,
was
massively.
there
I
a
mean,
buzz?
yeah, there's definitely, you feel safer. You feel like you're probably 2 or 3 phone calls away from somebody that will actually care about your problems, which is unique in Trump's America. Let me put it. For example, if you're going into Florida or Texas, different vibe. That's all I can
That's a
say.
very
Different vibe.
diplomatic way of putting it. I flew
Yeah.
into Miami not long ago, and it's a whole nother story, maybe for a whole nother life. I want to, as you were saying, you got to immigration and you saw a black woman and the relief and the joy.
Mm.
I want to just take a moment to hold space for the fact that Black women in America were the only demographic group that kept it real. The
Yeah.
only demographic group that kept it real, that stayed true to voting against fascism, against MAGA, against racism, against divisive politics. So that is true and something that, every day I think about. But then I also want to talk about the fact that there are Black women who are getting co-opted by this project. And we were going to talk about Nicki Minaj today. And for me, it's such
Mm.
a nothing hurts more than seeing a Black woman be used by a project that hates Black people and brown people at its heart, as MAGA
Yep.
does.
Yep.
And no, I wouldn't say I'm a Nicki Minaj fan. My critique of Nicki Minaj has been that I felt she's allowed herself to be used by various agendas that are nefarious to our community for many years.
Yep.
Um, However, I did not have it on my bingo card for 2025 to see Nicki Minaj hold herself out as the voice of persecuted Christians in Nigeria. And there are a few reasons for that. One, I don't have any reason to believe Nicki Minaj has any particular expertise on the incredibly complex situation and crisis in Nigeria. And I say that as someone who spent my whole adult life working on humanitarian crises in West Africa. And I find the situation in Nigeria endlessly complex and nuanced. So I don't know how somebody who doesn't have that background feels able to weigh in on the world stage and take a position. And when that position conveniently feeds into a narrative that wants to single out causes that fit its agenda, it's just so disturbing. And, when we said we were going to talk about this, I just went and had a look at podcasts that have come out about violence against Christians in Nigeria. And in the last week, there are countless MAGA fronted far right podcasts all all weighing in to the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. None of these people have ever been interested in the suffering of Africans before, in civil or sectarian strife in Nigeria before, in the way that foreign actors have been behind so much of the destabilization in Nigeria before. So it just couldn't feel more cynical to me. But anyway, I have a lot of views.
Yeah.
I want to know, as a Nigerian, Miss Anne, and we've both also worked in Nigeria and engaged with some of the issues that do tap into the more divisive and controversial and topics about identity and access to resources that can very easily become
Yeah.
weaponized. So
Yeah.
talk to me about
Yeah,
that.
and of course I do, in my capacity with multiple charities, there's a lot of work I do in Nigeria. I've spent time with well, women that were girls that have been abducted. There's a lot of skin in the game for this with me, but I think it all goes back to, once again, white supremacy, because many of the most successful um, black faces in America do not quite realize that you can quickly become the black face of white supremacy, whether it's Pharrell or Nicki Minaj. And the idea that Nicki Minaj is speaking for the victims when, give or take, I think it's 20, maybe 25% of the victims are Christian, right? No mention of the Muslim, the many more Muslim attacks that are happening,
It's
right?
just so wild
And
to
and,
me
and
that
I'm
you
like,
could say people have been dying, because this is not denying that violence has been horrific for many people in northern Nigeria. And there are different conflicts in Nigeria, but the
yeah,
ones in Jos and Plateau states and the one in northern Nigeria and what's
yeah,
sometimes called the Middle Belt have been killing people. And that is real and it's serious. My issue is with weighing in because you believe Christians specifically are being so
yeah.
basically saying, I don't care about the Muslims who've been suffering
No mention of the
from
Muslims at all.
conflict. But if Christians are being
Mm,
attacked, now I care, which is
yeah,
just like, first of all, probably the most un-Christian thing I've ever heard.
yeah. It's a very colonial thing, though. I mean, it's
Very strange.
she is speaking the language of empire. And I don't know anyone near her or that speaks for her, but she could have literally got onto the AI or the Google of it all and realized that this is this, to try and turn this into some sort of holy war between the good people of the MAGA right and the savages in Nigeria. I mean, it's just everything about it is so the language of colloquial, the way that she appeared out of nowhere to be a subject matter expert on Nigeria. What? What are we talking about?
So
So yeah, that's my view, and Nigeria has a lot of issues that no one seemed to have been speaking about at that scale at the presidential level, whether it's food insecurity, whether it's some of the natural disasters that we've been having, all sorts of things you could talk about in Nigeria, but this is a very specific thing that the MAGA podcasters can pick up with. And worse still, the bots. So if I do a post about Palestine, now they say, "Oh, you've never been saying anything about the killing of Christians in Nigeria." And I'm like, "Oh, so this is your new talking point." It's very interesting.
there are a few extra layers of irony that I just want to touch on. The first is that if you want to talk about terrorism in northern Nigeria and Boko Haram and other jihadist groups who've been terrorizing local populations, as you pointed out, Ms. Anne, the majority of whose victims have been other Muslims, because this is not a conflict that seeks to eradicate Christianity. It's attacked against the Nigerian state. They believe
Mhm.
that the Nigerian state are an infidel organization and they will target anyone who they believe will help their cause in attacking the Nigerian state. And most of the victims in northern Nigeria happen to be Muslim. And of course, we
Uh,
all have heard about the kidnappings of schoolgirls, predominantly Muslim. Um,
Predominantly
but
Muslim, yeah.
but one of the things that's so crazy to me, when I was the West Africa correspondent for The Guardian, I covered all of the conflicts in the Sahel. So that's the region bordering the Sahara Desert. It's has incredibly porous borders. It's got low population density. But it's basically desert adjacent. So you can imagine nomadic population, sparsely populated, very weak governance because there's not really any infrastructure. There aren't town halls and local councils, got huge areas of ungoverned space. The American government, when it decided to topple Gaddafi, overlooked or didn't know or was disinterested in the fact that the Gaddafi regime kept a lid on some of the most dangerous armed groups across the whole Sahel region. So lots of highly armed, highly militaristic groups who have been launching local insurgency attacks for years were kept into this power structure by Gaddafi and systems of patronage. They fought for him, or they were paid by him, or they were organized under him. When the US toppled Gaddafi, they unleashed all of these groups. They destroyed the power structure that kept them contained, newly armed, flooded the entire Sahel with weapons. And that is the root, that is the context for all of the insurgencies. You look at what's happening in Mali, you look at what's happening in Burkina Faso, you look at what's happening in northern Nigeria. I did an interview with one of the Obama regime's leading foreign policy advisors, where he was asking me about the war in Mali. We did this podcast talking about the war in Mali. And I said, you guys started that when you decided to topple Gaddafi and didn't think about governance in the Sahel and the unleashing of all these like disenfranchised, armed young men who already knew how to conduct warfare throughout the region. And his response was like, oh, shit. I'm not even exaggerating. It didn't occur to them. So
Why would it? Yeah.
this is the level of American foreign policy engagement with West Africa. They have been destabilizing the region either deliberately because they want control of resources or through indifference or ignorance. They have been invested in and benefiting from access to oil. So if you look at and other resources, the US has recently expanded its military base in Niger, in the Sahara. It's increasingly investing in military infrastructure throughout this whole region. Then, of course, you have the question of Nigerian commodities and other West African commodities that are exported by America. The idea that the US is capable of making a helpful pronouncement about security in Nigeria is so farcical to me. And nobody takes it seriously on the continent. It's just embarrassing. So, the funny thing is that Tinubu, the Nigerian president, who, by the way, is Muslim and whose wife is Christian, just like one of so many casual examples of how you can't look at Nigeria through this Muslim versus Christian lens, has said, yeah, cool, if you're going to come and help us with this insurgency we've been struggling with for years, partly caused by you, by the way, you're welcome to come and help us as long as you respect our sovereignty. But that's not what is on offer here. What's on offer here is just hijacking the complexity and suffering in Nigeria to further another MAGA agenda. And it's not even serious. It's just attention seeking. It's just a bargaining chip because Nigeria wants things that America doesn't want to give them. Nigeria wants to join BRICS, which Trump hates. He thinks it's anti-American. Nigeria wants a permanent seat at the Security Council, which America doesn't want it to have. And Nigeria has been refusing to accept people who are being deported from America, sometimes illegally after ICE raids. So America wants to send Venezuelan migrants who it wants to deport to Nigeria, and Nigeria is refusing to accept them because that would be illegal. So this is like the kind of pettiness of the Trump administration to punish nations for refusing to just kowtow to its insane agenda by threatening to invade, essentially. It's so bananas. Anyway,
Well, yeah, I mean, but
extra legitimacy.
Yeah, and you said it all. I mean, the only thing I'd add to that is Nigeria is, the most populous country in the continent, predominantly young and really well informed population that is not going to buy any of this crap. Right. We've also coexisted. There are many religions in Nigeria, but yes, the predominant ones are Islam and Christianity. And we've had multiple presidents of both faiths. And, if you go to Kanu, Kaduna, or of course Abuja, and then down south in Lagos or further, into the Delta where I'm from, you see Muslim people there always. And I find it really interesting that this is coming up now. The US government is many things, but I would dare say that they know 10 times more than we do about what's really going on. So you need to ask yourself, why now? But we could do a 3 hour podcast
Yeah,
on
and if
on
you'd like
this.
one, if you want a 3 hour podcast on Nigeria, let us know because
Yeah, yeah.
we got
We,
views.
it's really, really interesting.
But I
Yeah.
would say, for people watching who might not be Nigerian, but might be from other countries in West Africa, or who might be from the diaspora and wanting to do Dirty December, coastal West Africa, all of the places that people like to travel, like Senegal and Ghana, are being destabilized by these insurgencies of the hell. It's serious. It's not a marginalized issue that doesn't affect you. And I think that we should all be paying attention to
Yeah. Oh,
one, the
Afro, that's a big
situation, which is
point.
serious. It's a
That's a really
I'm
big point on
very
Dirty
complacent
December.
about it. People go to Accra for Dirty December and they don't think they need to understand what's happening in the West African region. It is a region. All our countries have sovereignty in their nation states, but those borders were drawn by white people on maps at the conference of Berlin. They're not borders that shield different nations from the regional phenomena of insurgencies and violence. And those are being fueled by foreign actors. And now they're being threatened to be made worse by just callous, casual, ignorant bluster from the White House. So I really would say pay attention and hold your governments accountable and hold your rappers accountable. What the hell, Nicki Minaj? I
Uh,
mean, I didn't think
well,
I could be more disappointed in her, but here you go,
well, look,
2025. What a platform.
we have Dirty December in Lagos too, and I'm gonna get some stick for this, but I'm gonna say it. The whole concept of Dirty December, as I see it, feels like a colonial project to me.
Oh, Miss Sal,
Uh,
we
and I'll
that's a whole subject that we
yeah,
could
and I'll
do.
tell you briefly. We can do a whole other thing on this, but the idea that we, the children of diaspora, are coming back for 10 days. I mean, I was there in Accra 2 years ago um, with my kids, my family, and I was seeing what was going on. I was like, this is just crazy because it could have been Mykonos, right? And I'm thinking you're using your hard-earned dollars and pounds to do what whilst you're there,
Can I
right?
just read? Issa Labs has just said, "Dirty December would require me to remortgage my place. If you look at flight prices,
Yeah, yeah,
ridiculous. I think
yeah.
we're
And
going to
who's
do.
making the money out of that?
We're
Who's
going
making
to
the
do
money out
Dirty
of it?
December. I've
Yeah,
got views too, but I
we
think
need to do it. We need to do it. You know what? They should do Dirty December in your villages. I'm switching to Niger. Fly back, go to your village. Don't go any near any club. Oh. Go and sit in your village for
Oh,
two
you've gone
weeks.
full Uncle Misan. All right, next week we're going to do Dirty December. We've decided. Okay, so just like to wrap up this theme of African Americans who we greatly respect as a people and culture, but individual people who are weighing into subjects I don't think they really know that much about. I have to mention Kerry James Marshall because he's an incredible artist. And if you don't know his work, go and look it up, or go if you're in London to the Royal Academy, where he is the first ever African American artist to have a solo exhibition in the main galleries of the RSA. It's a really big, the RSA, the RA, the Royal Academy is a really big deal, and he deserves a whole episode on his art. But one of the things he's famous for is for painting black subjects, centering black subjects in joy and resilience and insurrection and everyday life, and using black hues. So it's a very literal, not literal. It's blackness, not like real, not how people look, but it's material blackness. He's using like black hues as a way of exploring the idea of blackness, the identity, what it means. It's really interesting. Some of his work is so beautiful. For this exhibition, he worked with some white curators to come up with 8 new paintings called The Histories, and they are about Black complicity in enslavement, which is a really important subject. I think it's a really important subject. I want us all to be more knowledgeable about the history of enslavement in all its facets. But I think if you want to talk about the involvement of Africans in the slave trade, in kidnapping and trading and selling other Africans, you really need to understand a lot of the complexity of identities, of trade, of the destabilization that European colonialists brought in, of the way they used and weaponized African states against each other to profit from slavery. And I personally feel that Kerry James Marshall failed quite seriously to engage with that nuance. And I feel like he took a very surface level interpretation of the idea that Africans just sell each other. You know, they
Mm,
just want nice things. They want trinkets. They
mhm,
want horses. They want pretty European consumer goods. And they're cool with like bundling their brothers and sisters onto ships in exchange for these things. And it's a really dangerous misinterpretation of that complex history because again, it feeds into a narrative that white people love. People on the right, people who want to deny the history of racism and systemic oppression, love to tout the idea that it's actually Africans who are responsible for enslavement. You know, white people were tangential actors. It was really because Africans are barbaric. Africans are don't appreciate the value of human life, and Africans are materialistic and just wanted goods and were quite happy to sell each other. And they love that narrative because it distracts attention from their historic and ongoing profiting from systemic racism. And any Black person who wants to weigh into that needs to know what the hell they're talking about. And that's work. And I think it's great work. And I encourage everybody watching to do it. But I was so disappointed that somebody with the status and the body of work of Kerry James Marshall would literally use a huge platform, like a huge space, to propagate images that don't speak to that history, but instead speak to a kind of white imagining of what that history looks like. And I just genuinely don't know why he did that. Have you seen it,
mm.
Miss Anne?
I have, and you know, Carrie James Marshall. I mean, if not the most, one of the most important living Black artists, one of the highest selling Black artists.
He sold a painting for, I think it's $22 million, which I think is a record for
Yeah, I had a private tour from Mark Godfrey, the
who's the
curator.
curator.
And you know, I think Mark did a really, really astonishing job. I was actually brought to tears. I didn't want him to see my tears. There's one specific part that just really, really moved me. But when I got to that part, my spider senses really started tingling. I remember asking whether, funnily enough, I remember asking whether Kerry had ever been to Africa, and of course, you know, he hadn't yet. And you said it so clearly. It feeds into um, a right leaning narrative that will be grabbed all the time about us blacks selling and being as if we were, you know, the singular reason for the transatlantic slave trade to happen. And you know, I go back to many good podcasts, including William Dalrymple's, who handles this really, really well when he when they talk about, you know, slavery, and we can do 10 episodes about this and how slavery, as many people knew it, you know, was a penal system before there was one, and people could kind of climb up through that and become slave kings. And there were so many other things, but it was a unique interpretation of slavery that made it a central part of the capitalist machine that built half of the Western world, if not all of it, if we go back just a generation or two, that is something that cannot be denied or reduced. And I think when, you know, it's when we have prominent Black, and, you know, I can tie all of this to, you know, what Pharrell said or Priti Patel that I'm going to bring in later. When people of color do things, whether inadvertently or, you know, by design, that fits into a narrative that hurts us, I think we have to at least call it out or have a discussion about it so people can recognize this in plain sight and then decide how they should receive that art. Most of the show is astonishing, but that specific commission really broke my heart. And that's just the
That's the
honest
thing,
truth.
actually. I say all this out of love because I really respect Kerry James Marshall. I want us to do better because
Mm.
we are susceptible to these narratives like everyone else. We
Yep.
consume the media that promotes these ideas. We're not raised with access to the complexities of this history. We still don't get to hear the African perspective on African histories. You know,
Mm.
it's been systematically degraded by colonialism. Our archives are rotting in basements. You know, our books and pamphlets are out of print. Generations of intellectuals who did this work and told our stories have been denied access to us growing up so that we can read and engage with their work and keep it in the public domain. So, you know, it's not surprising that many of us don't have access or haven't engaged with this in detail. But I just think if you're going to make that your work as an
Yeah,
artist,
you need
you
to.
have a responsibility
Yeah.
to engage.
Especially with
And
his platform. I mean, he's as important as it
mm,
gets in the art world.
yeah. Anyway, if you get a chance to go and see the exhibition, I also wrote a Substack just about this because I felt really strongly about it. So check it out, check it out. Okay, so on the topic of kind of internalizing uh, narratives that come from systems of white power when you're looking at Black movements, I guess that is kind of a summary of the film, one battle after another for me. So yeah, I didn't even want to talk about
Afua! I love you.
it. Bad. I don't even have a better word. It was just bad. It was so lazy
I warned
and
you, didn't I? I mean, I
so
warned you.
shallow and so cheap. And I say that like the cinematography was amazing and blah blah blah, and I feel like every actor was trying to bring something to that performance that made it other something more than a performance in a really embarrassingly badly conceived and shallowly executed story. And they tried really hard, but it was like uh, a creational sin that this idea of this movie, the gaze, was just astonishingly bad, astonishingly wrong, and offensive. I was so offended. And if you haven't watched it, like to me, this is one of the most offensive depictions of what it means to be a revolutionary that I've
Mhm.
ever seen. And I really question whether anyone who was involved in writing or producing that has ever actually met a revolutionary. Because if you've met a Black revolutionary, they bear zero resemblance to any of the characters in that film to
I
me.
mean, yeah, I think it's. I'm trying to just find Ellen Reeves because she said it so beautifully of in her Guardian article, and she's a Black woman, and it's I mean the fetishization of Black women in this. It's one of the most deeply disturbing films I've ever seen. It's also extra disturbing because I think it could sweep the Oscars. It's
No, Miss
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nobody's going to take it seriously. Surely it's
Mark my words. There are people celebrating every performance. There are people saying that it's the greatest performance by Sean Penn, and I have a lot of problems with that character. There are,
we're talking. Sorry, he says asking which film we're talking about. We're talking about one
one
battle
battle
after
after
another.
another, which is Paul Thomas Anderson, one of the, make no mistake, one of the greatest ever filmmakers. That is not a
And
debate.
actually, and Miss Anne, you're a huge movie buff, so maybe like, is there any advocacy you can do for this movie in terms of,
No, no,
I don't know,
no.
like the directing, the cinematography, the framing? I don't know
No,
the.
no, no. It's my job to try and protect Black women, and there is nothing in this film that moves that forward. And I just wanted to be clear: Tiana Taylor and Chase Infinity eat up the screen, and Regina Hall. They all really good
They
in
they do the most to try and make this film work.
they really do. But Tiana Taylor's character, I mean, even the fucking name. Sorry, excuse me. Her name was Perfidia
Ophidia.
Beverly Hills. Okay, I just feel like we're being laughed at even by the
I'm
name, right?
saying though, it's
And
serious.
she is ultra violent, ultra sexual. She's non maternal, ultra violent, and ultra sexual, right? And she is supposed to be the revolutionary image. And when I finished occurred, I watched just as we heard of her passing. And if you read about Black women revolutionaries who are, you know, incredibly intelligent humans that have taken a bite out of every facet of this thing called
Like,
life.
go and read Asata Shakur's book
Yeah.
and see if this film makes sense. And like the thing about it, people have tried to defend this film saying that it's countering respectability politics. Why can't a Black woman be like super sexualized and reckless and non-maternal? It's that I find that so weird. This is my issue with this film is about the respectability politics of the film in a way, because the
Yeah.
film is trying to normalize what I think is basically like a white man's porn fantasy of
Yeah.
what a black woman revolutionary is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
trying to make that an acceptable trope that is real. And I'm saying the real story about black women revolutionaries is so much more interesting and nuanced, and so doesn't conform to the respectability of what makes white audiences comfortable, that I would love to see it on this scale with this platform. That's not what this film is not trying to, if it's trying to show that, because the truth is far too uncomfortable and far too much at odds with the respectability politics of US audiences, let alone global audiences. So
Wait,
that for me is like a giant misunderstanding of what
it's also about
black
who
women
gets to tell
do.
the stories, because why are we having a film about black women revolutionaries directed by a white man, right? Okay, I mean, it's and Leo's character, the Leo of it all, you know, the the way his attraction. There's one small scene where they're in the car, and then there's another scene in the mall where Sean Penn walks up and goes, "I love black women," and I'm just like, what is this? Like,
When I say the script is bad, I've never seen, like, even if you're, I don't know, as well, I wonder if, like, there's something about interracial relationships in America. And I'm not trying to offend any Americans watching this, but I feel like America is often very basic when it comes to interracial relationships. Like, it's still a big deal in
yeah.
America. And I think maybe the filmmakers think that just depicting Leonardo DiCaprio and Tiana Taylor is somehow a radical thing to do.
Well, Paul Thomas Anderson is married to a black woman.
And it's almost like it's so radical just that that could exist, that it's fine to drown and immerse it in stereotype and cliche about the hypersexualization of black women and the fantasies that white men have about them. And it's just like, it just, I'm the product of an interracial relationship. You're in one. I
Hmm.
don't recognize any
No,
of that dynamic. It's
no.
so basic and
It's
rude.
and also we have to look at the power dynamic of if I don't care who you are, if you're an actress that gets a phone call, this is me trying to, defend Chase Infinity and Tiana Taylor. If you get a phone call that you're going to be in a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, you're going to say yes before you even look at the script. And when you see the script, look, this is the business of film. It is always considered a step up, for especially black women that do not get all the roles that they should get. This was a big step up. Chase is a new talent, and Tiana Taylor, obviously she's never been in a film with this level of talent as well, and Regina too. This is a big, it's a big opportunity. And I remember when they announced this almost 2 years ago, I was really excited. I was like, finally, this is what breaks my heart. I was like, finally, they're casting black women with great directors. If I knew it was going to be within the first 10 minutes, Sean Penn having a masturbate I don't want to, it's just, I was like,
That
what the fuck?
that scene is just
And then the
doesn't
poster art, there's
no.
violence. As a photographer, there is violence in imagery. And one of the main posters is of a pregnant black woman shooting a massive machine gun. And I'm like, and so
But
many white
again,
men.
it's like that's not, like revolutionaries are not like NRA lunatics. They don't like get orgasms from firing automatic weapons. Like there is a cause, there is a struggle, there is a mission, there's an intellectual blueprint, there is a vision. Where is that? I don't even know what they're fighting for. What is the point of it all? The point of it is to provide literally some kind of pornified fantasy about what a black woman who is wearing combat fatigues will do when she decides that she wants
Yep.
a white man ICE agent to get a hard on. Like that kind of summarizes the soul of the film to me. It doesn't exist. It's anyway, Miss Anne,
Yeah,
I don't
it's
think it's going to be taken seriously at award season, but if it does,
I promise
I
you. Oh,
found it here.
I found it. I found it. I'm going to read it now. Hold on. Let me just do a screenshot. I've been looking for this. So this is what Ellen Jones said for The Guardian, and I'm really proud of her for doing this. And she did this early on, as soon as it came out. So the headline of the article is Jezebel's Race Kink and Cardi B. In one battle after another, black women are still stereotypes. And then this byline with its hypersexualized black female revolutionary and fetishized depiction of interracial relationships, Paul Thomas Anderson's much lauded raises questions about how white male directors depict black women. Let me tell you, Afua, everyone in the industry is calling this thing a masterpiece. When I walked in, I was so listen. I went to like 11 a.m. showing. I was like, I'm going to see. Hey, this will be like There Will Be Blood, but it has black women in it.
Jay
I
Davis has just pointed out that Green Book won the Oscar. So yeah, I mean,
them
yeah.
yeah.
And by the way,
This
I'm not saying this because I have some kind of confidence in the Academy that they always do right by the depictions of black people. I'm just saying this film was so bad. Just strip away the completely problematic racial politics of it. It was just so bad. It was bad. It didn't make sense. It had no substance. It had no interiority. It had no content. It was just bad. So that's my perspective. But I mean, it wouldn't
I
be the
mean, let me
first
put
time
that.
for
It's
me.
really important to stress that a lot of very powerful white men have hosted screenings. I get invited to lots of screenings from all these fancy folks to see these films, and I see who's doing the Q&A, and you'd be surprised how no one. Let me put it this way: I have not seen a powerful white male voice with agency in the entertainment industry try and defend or call out the fetishization. I've seen black women write about it, but I've seen white men celebrate this vision of
Do
the
you know
black.
what? It's actually funny because this time, was it 2 years ago, Leonardo was presenting Killers of the Flower Moon for awards consideration. And I kept getting asked to host events around it. Like I hosted Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone several times. I was involved and I wrote about it. And that film, which by the way, I mean, it's not a perfect film, but an important film in depicting the systematic theft of oil wealth from Native Americans and the systemic exploitation of resources and then deliberate impoverishment, and also like on an interpersonal level, just how the nefariousness of whiteness in the marriages and the families that try to exploit that oil wealth. It's a powerful film. Um, Guess how many times I got asked to be involved in the promotion and conversation around this film, Miss Anne?
Zero. Zero,
Zero.
of
So
course.
maybe they know. Maybe they already know. And obviously, if they'd have asked me, I would have refused because I don't want anything to do with this film. This film fooled me.
Mm.
But the fact that you're talking about powerful white men in the industry sticking up for this film, maybe that's because they couldn't find any black people in the industry to stick up for this film because it's so bad.
Well, we've also blown, post Trump. I think we've just gone to a place where I don't even know if they care anymore. And the Killers of the Flower Moon, I mean, oh my God, we should. There are like a million podcasts we should have because I had serious issues with that film.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I
I
was,
I I I I had a lot of the Osage people, the First Nation people. I think had serious issues with that film.
yeah.
But that's a whole other conversation. But this is a troubling one. Battle after the will win. I'm going to say it now, and I hope I'm wrong. It will win at least 5 Oscars.
Okay, right. We're coming back after the Oscars to unpick our predictions, and I'm hoping you're wrong. I'm really hoping you're wrong on this one this time.
Me
I
too.
want you to be wrong really
Me too.
badly. Whew. All right, let's just wrap up our laying into problematic depictions of and interventions by Black people in America with Pharrell, because it's been a really bad week for noughties, 2010s music icons talking about shit they know nothing about. We've dealt with Nicki Minaj. Let's deal with Pharrell, your guy, Misan.
I've just one of the reasons I was late getting on to this is I was as the sun was setting, I was walking back to my hotel after spending an hour photographing and talking to Yazin Bey, formerly known as Mos Def.
Most deaf.
Right.
I was talking about him the other day.
And
Yeah.
we got into it, right? And it's that was definitely a private
Does
conversation, but
he still live in South Africa, or has he moved back to the US?
I don't think he's in the US. But it
I
was
last saw him in Morocco, and he'd exited. He said then for good.
oh, he's yeah. I mean, it's just so nice, like real revolutionary energy that isn't,
Yeah,
he ain't playing. And
he's not going to rock up with a MAGA speech at the UN. Thank God.
no, and he ain't, I mean, Pharrell, and it's just interesting, two very different energies, and Yazin doesn't get the flowers that but he is, he is in the Mount Rushmore of rappers, right? This guy is serious, and Pharrell is such an icon, and we've all grown up with him in many ways, but so much the thing about success is I all say at what cost, and I actually went on to his Instagram last night just to look, and they're only about 9 posts, and it looks like a catalog for Louis Vuitton. And the cult and curse of two things, capitalism and individualism, has made some of our most needed, urgently needed voices right now become a figment of our imagination. Like we have to really go back memory lane and remember NERD and remember some of the things Pharrell said and did before he became this version of himself. And it's really,
Well,
look
I
at his
don't really
Instagram.
remember things that he said. I just remember the music. Like I don't remember him standing for anything in particular. Did he used to
Yeah, he
stand?
did. He was political when he needed to be. Yes, he certainly was. I mean, he wasn't. That was not the front of his brand, but he certainly had a point of view. And now it's got to the point, and it's happened the week after a black woman gave birth on the road, right? And then there's the other video of a black woman again, damn near dying with a white lady next to her as she's seconds away from giving birth. Everything is fucking political right now. And to have a black icon to tell us who have grown up with him that that ain't for him it feeds into a place where it just makes me feel like we are in more danger because right now is when we need Pharrell, and he's saying these things. So
No, because my thoughts, I was thinking about this is a conversation we had a few months ago, Miss Amber. You were saying how you felt, you go to so many protests, speak to people who are kind of have been activated maybe for the first time in their lives by what we're living through. And you were saying like people don't want celebrity influencers anymore. Like they don't look up to people because they're famous. They look up to people because they stand for something or because they show them how they can use their lives to make a difference. And I think a lot about that because I've never really understood why people look up to people who don't stand for anything. But I was, I remember you saying, I'm thinking maybe it's changing. Pharrell maybe is a great example. Like I used to like his music. He's made some nice pieces for Louis Vuitton. Like, he's clearly completely politically illiterate. Like, he doesn't understand what politics is. He doesn't understand that the fact that he's in that position at Louis Vuitton is political, that the garments he makes and the people who make them and the distribution channels that allow him to sell and market them.
Afua, do you think he's that unintelligent?
Like, I don't think it was like a cynical, because it was so stupid. Like it makes him look bad. And so maybe he doesn't understand
No.
what politics are. Maybe he meant I'm disillusioned by party politics, which by the way is something I think many people can relate to
He's many things, but
right
he's not
now.
stupid. I refuse to believe Pharrell Williams is
I'm
stupid.
not saying he's stupid, but well, it came across as highly politically illiterate, and for me, it was like, well, you're not an interesting person to me, and I don't look up to
Yeah.
you, and you're irrelevant. So keep
But
doing
yeah,
what you're doing, but also know that you look stupid because you don't understand the politics that has been required for you to exist in the space that you're in. Like if people hadn't been political and fought the battles they fought, no black man is running a fashion label of that stature or being given a
yeah,
platform in the first place. So how dare you get up on that platform and say you don't care about politics? Like that's just
yes.
stupid and embarrassing.
I think
And
he knew exactly. He knows everything that we know. I think he was thrown that question and he had to come up with an answer that he thought was protecting him and his brand. And the damage was done. But this man, you cannot exist as a person that has seen the world in the way that he has and not know what it is. It's which I think is even worse, by the way. It's I'm not letting him off. I think it's even worse. There are people, when Snoop Dogg played at the Trump inauguration party or what, and I remember there's all of that uproar over that, right? And we've got to a place where people have short memories and it becomes like, okay, yeah, whatever, Snoop. I think with Pharrell, so much has moved in the conversation, and I'm talking black folk now are willing to have. It's the first time in my memory that people are willing to, from our community, criticize Kamala Harris, criticize Obama. They were untouchable for a while. Criticize Oprah, and I think
Oh, that's
Pharrell.
not true. We criticize them, but you wouldn't do it like publicly. I agree with that.
No, 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 no. I mean, in the public discourse, right? We've always had the conversations, but I've
Mhm.
never seen it happen in this scale online by a broad range of people that are not always agreeing, are beginning to question this for the first time. And you're right. I think maybe our idols are false and people beyond you and I are beginning to get to that place. And if they get to that place, let me tell you that those idols are in real trouble because we still hold them up to a standard that is I think is a fraud and a lie.
Well, my hope is that he's held accountable
Yeah,
by the people
yeah.
who looked up to him, followed him, supported him, because you can't enjoy and benefit from our support and then
Yeah.
betray our causes. And it's like, are you part of a community or not? Because nothing about what he said makes sense if he is operating in community with black people in America or globally. Like it just doesn't make sense.
The man
So
sang for IDF concert. Oh,
Pharrell,
yeah.
I
Yes.
didn't know that. Oh, you told me that at the beginning. How he's
Yeah,
a that's
he
cool.
he did the Friends of the AEF concert a few years back, and he got a lot of stick for it. And it's all coming out, and I think it's all part of the
Well,
same kind
Phil
of
then raises the question: why is anyone looking up to him in the first place? Like, if he's already shown you who he is, um, not everyone, by the
because
way, in the chat agrees with you, Miss Anne, that he's not politically illiterate, knows exactly what he's doing. But
oh, he
if
knows.
that's the case, it's not clever because it's already backfired. Like, if that was to protect his brand, he couldn't have found a clearer way to damage it. And by the way, this is a moment where people who have been a bit ambivalent about expressing a political identity publicly are now, for the first time, getting off the fence because they can see so clearly that staying quiet is not a neutral option. Staying quiet
No,
is being
it's not. It's
complicit
just
in a
it's too
dangerous agenda.
dangerous.
So I think if that's what it is, he massively miscalculated. And
Massively, but also I think they're surrounding themselves with, I don't know who his team are, but I spend a lot of time photographing a lot of famous black people, and when I see the people in management and publicity that look after them that are either white supremacists, right, or no engagement in anything linked to black culture, and you look after people that shape black culture,
yeah.
fuck's going on?
Yeah,
What's going on?
that's true. That's a good point. It's very common. And a lot of the people who have managed to kind of keep it real, you wonder and that's almost like in spite of who they're surrounded by and who they rely on to manage them, to
Yeah,
make
and as you get
editorial
richer,
decisions.
and that LV money, for example, it was seen as a move forward for black culture to have him to be the, creative director. But when has he been since he got that job? When has he spoken for black culture? Eh? No, I'm just trying to say. And if it's in a capitalist machine of which the value chain usually is hurting brown and black people, and yet he's the shiny end of that. And he walks at the end of the runway show, and it's surrounded by other vacuous celebrities, and we have to yield to the altar of that. Then we are lost as a people. So that's just my my feeling on that.
We were going to to talk about Priti Patel, but I feel like that's not a very cheerful note on which to.
For fuck's sake, we have to say something because this
That
woman was
wasn't
already.
that wasn't is nothing. So if Priti Patel just posted a selfie of her or a picture of her with Netanyahu, her bestie. That's not, there's nothing surprising about it. She was actually, even when she was in office, she kept getting in trouble
She
for
got in
conflicts of
trouble.
interest, for having
Yes.
her summer holidays paid for by the Netanyahu government so she could go on a kind of pro IDF jolly in Israel. So
Yes.
she was even compromising her job in cabinet because
Yes.
she couldn't resist the lure of Netanyahu.
Yes.
So now that
Or
she's in opposition, it's nothing remotely surprising about
it
her
is. It is
souring him
still
down.
though. It is still. She's done a video after that where she is evangelizing Netanyahu. It is incredulous though that she can do this now after, it's one thing to blindly support the Zionist project because that's just what you choose to do politically, but to go on a trip to Israel and to ignore what every court in the land, well, the ICC, ICJ have said, what the Lancet has said, what is a genocide, as said by the United Nations, and speak about this man like he is just a mildly controversial figure, mildly, not someone that has overseen pages exploding and kids being blinded, right? It is, it's just extraordinary to me. And when you see that it is a woman, that is a child of empire, that is a woman of color, and I know we know Pretty and Suella and Kemi are far gone, but this is, I think, uncharted territory, how far they're willing to go. And I just saw a new thing with Trevor Phillips writing some crazy shit about deporting people. And Afua, we need to do a whole episode about, and I think, just about you and I, a handful of people that would take this on about black and brown Brits and what this cohort of black and brown British men and women that are either in the political machinery of this generation or powerful voices in the media machinery, because we need to, and I don't think it's for this conversation, but we need to sit down and talk about this because it's really, really dangerous, it's really, really concerning, and we need to um have a statement of fact about it, because
If I'm
sometimes.
looking, if I'm looking skeptical, it's not because I don't agree with every single word you're saying. It's because I'm sick of them. They make me sick. So omnipresent. Like you can never get away from these people and their sunken
But
place.
once and for all, we have to say it because we kind of let it slip. And then we just keep getting triggered, whether it's Trevor, whether it's David Lammy, whether it's Kemi. Yeah, and you just see something, you're like, no, that's hurting us. It's hurting us. And, so many powerful white friends of mine, I did a video about this, they will send me articles by Trevor Phillips expecting me to agree because he looks like me. And I think that's
It's not
dangerous.
just that he looks like you. Trevor Phillips, maybe he can deserve his own special category because he was the chair of
I
the
know, I know,
Commission
I
for
know.
Racial Equality. He actually was one of the most visible anti-racists. So the fact that he's gone deep sunken place is like a whole story all on its own. I agree with you, Miss Anne. Maybe we'll talk about it fully another time. But I just want to say that while Priti Patel will always be a figure from a horror story for me, I also, in a way, am more disturbed by because Priti Patel, there's a transparency about her. Like she's a terrible person with horrific politics who loves people who commit war crimes. Like I don't know how else to describe it. But what I really, really am angry about right now is our Labour government, who on the surface stand for the underdog, working class people, people who've been left behind. We have a prime minister who is known for his work in human rights law, who are quietly, not in plain sight, but like behind the scenes, carrying out the very same agenda. So last year it came out that 40% of Labour's cabinet have been receiving money from pro-Israel lobbyists since they were first
Sorry, how
elected to
many?
cabinet.
40.
40%. So 13 out of Labour's 25 cabinet ministers have been being funded by pro-Israeli causes. Where was that on our election manifesto? Where was that when we made our choices about who we wanted to represent us? And it's so dark because they are holding themselves out as being the face of progressive causes while actually being exactly like Priti Patel, but without even the honesty of posting the pictures of the people they take their money from. So I'm not in any way trying to diminish the horror of Priti Patel, but I'm just saying the people that we might once upon a time have thought would represent us are just as bad, but even worse because they're so dishonest about it, in my
Well, we need
opinion.
to invite my friend, Mr. Zach Polanski, to come and be a guest in one of our rants. I have to send him a DM.
That you are invited.
Fully to every
And if you have
cookout.
other ideas to people about people you'd like us to invite, let us know because
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I know. I think we
I'm
should
keen
try
to
to get.
come up with more ideas about other conversations.
Yeah, yeah, and we should. I mean, we didn't. We've run out of time, but we didn't even talk about what's the Farage Gate and what's going on now with his schoolmates that are coming out, and the anti-Semitism, which is been part of Farage since he was at Dulwich College, and now I think the Guardian said 20 people have come out talking about the overt racism towards Indian people, Black people, and Jewish people,
The
and
problem is, Miss Anne, do you remember who was it that reform woman who said that she feels really annoyed every time she sees black or brown people in ads on TV?
oh yeah, yeah,
Uh, I can't remember her name, and I don't even want to. I don't want to re-manifest her presence, but that happened. It was just one of the most nakedly racist basic things that a politician could say. Like basically every time I'm watching TV and a black or brown person appears, it makes me upset.
hmm
And you would think that that person would be basically voted out of public life, like deemed an unacceptable person to participate in
hmm
conversations in a democracy. Instead, we had like weeks of debate about whether
yeah.
that was racist,
We've got to
about
this
whether
place.
anyone
Yeah,
should
yeah.
criticize. So I don't think that Farage, having been outed, surprise, surprise, as a lifelong racist, is going to make any difference to his
No,
political prospects.
no.
And that's what really disturbs me. Like, it doesn't matter. And in fact, it might even strengthen his appeal to parts of the electorate who are themselves feeling emboldened to indulge
Yeah. Well,
in
he's
racism that once upon a
Trump-esque.
time they would have kept hidden. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same.
I mean, sexual assault with Trump and 33, 32 criminal convictions, and he is still the most powerful man in the world. I think with Farage, though, the way he is trying to fight it is going to damage him, actually. And
Let's
if
see.
we smell blood with someone it does not see us as human beings, right? Those with a platform have to call this shit out. I've people say, Miss Anne, don't you get tired of? I say, no. I don't get tired of because if we're quiet, then I said in a thing I did for Choose Love the other day that we are the last outpost. There's no one behind me, or there's no one left. And if it wasn't for you, Afua, myself, and others, we have to keep calling this shit out, and we will have spa breaks if we have to recharge, but we got to keep speaking. So
Oh, thank you, Miss Anne. It's
pleasure.
always
Sorry I was late. It's nuts. I'm in
nourishing.
Doha at the moment,
I
and it's
don't think you
just
were late. I think, and I will probably never say this again in my life, I was early.
ah!
Miracles do
I'm so happy. I usually make mistakes. I'm quite happy. I
Thank you for
got it.
joining. Thank you for being.
All right. Take care. Bye. Bye. Bye.